Hello, English majors. Welcome back to our discussion. So let us proceed with item number 16. Which of the following best distinguishes human language from animal communication? So once again, our main principle is going to be best distinguishes human language from animal communication. All right. So once again, just post the video and then answer it on your own. Okay, I'll provide the answer na. So, A. Humans can produce sounds using vocal organs. Tama naman. Whereas animals cannot produce meaningful vocalizations. Pwede. Let's go with option C. Animals communicate using sounds, gestures, or signals, but humans cannot rely on gestures in communication. Tama ba yun? So yes, ang mga hayop, gumagamit sila ng sounds, gestures, or signals para mag-communicate. So in terms of sounds, ito yung mga audio. For example, yung aso, tumatahol, gestures. Let's say, pag umuwi ka na, yung aso mo tuwan-tuwa, yung buntot niya, gestures. Pag signal naman, may kinalaman ang signals kasi sa chemistry. So, let's say yung aso, 'di ba? Pag nilalakad mo yung aso mo, 'di ba mayat maya siya umiihi? Kahit wala naman talagang totaling ihing lumalabas. Anyway, the purpose of that urinating is para mag-mark siya ng territory sa lugar niya. Okay? So, anbawa, naglalakad ka tapos nilalakad mo yung aso mo huminto sa isang corner para umihi. Yung aso mo, minamark niya yung lugar na yon as his territory. Therefore, pag may ibang asong dumaan at naamoy nila yon, may isip nila, aso to ni ano, aso to ni, teritoryo to ni ano, ni ganyan. That's marking territory. Yun yung purpose nun. Okay? So yes, animals do communicate using sound, gestures, or signals. Pero tingnan mo yung pangalawang clause. Humans cannot rely on gestures in communication. That's obviously incorrect, no? Because we humans, we rely on gestures during communication. Okay, D. Human language is entirely instinctive and requires no learning. Ibig sabihin nito, ang tao daw ay pag pinanganak ka, marunong ka na daw mag-Filipino, marunong ka na mag-English, marunong ka na mag-French. Obviously, that is incorrect. While animals must learn their signals socially. That is the opposite, di ba? So, baliktarin mo lang tong D because human language requires learning while animals they don't need to learn their communication. Pag pinanganak na sila, marunong na sila mag-communicate ng feelings nila. As I said nga, ang mga aso, 'di ba, kinukuha mo sila tuta pa lang sa nanay nila. Pero eventually kahit walang nagtuturo diyan or kahit walang nearby na aso, matututong tumahol yan on their own. So therefore, C and D are incorrect. Now, ang plausible answer dito is either A or B. But ang tinatanong, best distinguishes human language from animal communication. And the better answer is letter B. Language is productive and creative, allowing the creation of an infinite number of new messages, unlike most animal communication which is fixed and limited. That is the better and superior answer. Bakit mali yung A? Intindi natin yung A. Humans can produce sounds using vocal organs. This is correct. Whereas animals cannot produce meaningful vocalizations. Dito yung pangalawa nakakatalo. Kaya naman mag-produce ng animal ng meaningful vocalizations. Magkaiba yung vocalization sa speech. Okay? Magkaiba yun. Ang speech, this happens when you use your articulators para makaproduce ka ng specific sound na nag exist sa isang language. We call those phonemes. Okay? Whereas, ang mga animal naman, pag sinabing vocalization, well, may vocalization din naman ng mga tao. Vocalization means that you are using your voice. You're using your voice. Ang mga hayop, they can also vocalize. It just so happens na compared to a language, it's not systematic. Pero, possible pa rin naman na maging meaningful ang vocalization ng hayop. Halimbawa, yung aso. Puro aso, no? Hindi na paghahalata ang dog lover ako. Okay, ang mga aso, pag sinaktan mo yung mga aso, ano yung magiging vocalization yan? Ano magiging vocalization ng aso pag sinaktan mo, di ba? Di ba gaganon-ganon sila? So even though yung vocalization nila is not as 100% clear na maintindihan ng mga tao. To some extent, it's still meaningful. Therefore, animals cannot produce meaningful vocalizations is incorrect. The superior answer is letter B. Human language is productive and creative, which is totoo. Language is infinite. Pwede kang gumawa ng kahit anong words, and then yung mga words na nagawa na may evolve into different words, which of course if you combine them together will form different sentences, which will form different paragraphs, which will form volumes on volumes of uh, words, basically, allowing the creation of an infinite number of new messages, unlike most animal communication, which is fixed and limited. Okay, 17. Which of the following best reflects the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis? Dalawang tao to si Sapir at saka si Whorf. They just combined their ideas into an hypothesis. Question. Let's assume na hindi mo kilala si Sapir-Whorf. Si Sapir and si Whorf. How will you answer this kind of question? Or baguhin natin. How will you answer a multiple choice question wherein you have no background knowledge or background idea of the question? Ang titignan mo dito, class, is yung mga options. You will look kung ano yung common and then kung ano yung pinaka-unique. So usually, ang tinatanong pag ganun is, alin sa tatlo ang negative at alin sa apat ang pinaka-tama, pinaka-positive, whereas the rest, mga negative lang. So that's a clue. Kung hindi mo alam yung, kung wala kang background knowledge about sa tanong, tignan mo yung mga options, hanapin mo dyan kung ano yung pinaka nagme-make sense. So, tingnan nyo yung A, B, and D. A, B, and D. What do they all have in common? Basahin muna. A, B, and D, what they all have in common is that they are negative and they are exclusive. Intindihin natin. Let's go with option A. Language and thought are completely independent. To some extent, pwede mong i-debate yan. Pero tinan mo yung susunod na sentence. The structure of a language has no influence on how its speakers perceive the world. O talaga ba? The structure of a language has no influence on how its speakers perceive the world. Totoo ba? Halimbawa, pag nag english ka, di ba? Di ba meron tayong common saying, pag American English, parang normal lang sa ating mga Pilipino yun. But if it's British English, parang ang social pakinggan. Di ba? The structure of a language, it influences the people talaga. Nagkakaroon tayo ng perception dyan. Di ba nga, pag marunong mag-English, sinasabi natin, wow, mayaman, Englishero, Englishera. Di ba? Nagkakaroon tayo ng ganong mindset. Okay, so no, this is incorrect. No, the structure of a language has no influence on how its speakers perceive the world. So if we, mga non-speakers ng isang language, piniperceive natin sila, what more pa kaya kung marunong din tayo ng language nila, di ba? It affects our way of thinking talaga. Why? Because bawat language may kanya-kanyang words yan, nakakaiba, na hindi nag-exist sa ibang mga languages. Therefore, kung meron tayong best definition para dito, of course, it will affect our way of thinking. However, what I want you to understand as well is that sa Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, hindi pa naman to disproven, pero meron din itong huge criticism. Because sabi ni Sapir-Whorf, the structure and vocabulary of a language influences how its speakers perceive the world. Tama naman. Shaping but not fully determining thought. So dito na nga papasok yung shaping but not fully determining thought. Because ano ba yung main purpose ni Sapir-Whorf? Ang sinasabi lang naman kasi ni Sapir at saka ni Whorf, yung language na ginagamit mo, it influences your way of thinking. Pero may sinabi din sila na ang language na ginagamit mo, hindi sa lahat ng oras na kung ano man yung meron sa language mo, wala sa ibang language. It has been disproven. Already disproven. Hindi porket hindi nag-exist yung exact translation does not necessarily mean na yung thought or yung pinaka-essence ng idea cannot be translated. So yes, yung exact words, hindi natin possible mata-translate. Pero yung exact na idea, pwedeng i-translate. For example, kamusta ka? Kamusta ka? How will you translate that in English? How are you? 'Di ba? That is the direct translation, how are you? Now, yung yung ka, sa kamusta ka, yung ka, we can translate that into you. Pero yung kamusta na word, how are, pwede mo bang i-translate yun into how are? So, hindi sa lahat ng oras, as I said nga, 100% accurate yung pag-translation ng words. Pero in terms sa context or idea, kaya namang i-translate yun. How are you and kamusta ka, in terms of meaning, are the same. But in terms of words, magkaiba. Okay? Now, tingnan naman natin yung B and C. The grammar of a language directly determines reality, not necessarily, making speakers unable to think beyond their language. So, sobrang negative nito. So, let's proceed with D naman, sorry. Let's proceed with D. Okay. So, language exists purely for communication and has no effect on cognitive process. Maling-mali agad to. Because the fact na gumagamit ka ng language, you're using your brain. So, it has cognitive process. Okay? Or worldview. It has no effect on worldview. As I said nga, no. Alright, so once again, pag sinabi nating Sapir and Whorf hypothesis or linguistic relativity, ang tinitignan nga na dito is the structure and vocabulary of a language influences how its speakers perceive and think about the world, shaping but not fully determining thought. Okay, so ito naman yung language theories and their proponents. So when we say proponents, sila yung mga founders or yung main na nag-i-empower ng idea or ng theory. Okay. So, punta muna tayo sa behaviorist theory. This is where language is learned through imitation, reinforcement, and conditioning. Ang main proponent natin dito is Burroughs Frederick Skinner or si B.F. Skinner na lang. Throughout your years as an English major in the secondary education, may encounter mo tong si B.F. Skinner. Okay? Particularly sa kanyang theory of conditioning. Anyway, language is learned through imitation daw, reinforcement, and conditioning. So what do we mean by that? Ang mga bata, no? Ang mga bata, let's say mga zero, hindi man zero, sige. 0 to 2 years old. Hindi pa marunong masyadong umintindihan ng mga ganyang bagay. Pero kung anong nakikita nila sa magulang nila or sa mga nakakasama nila sa bahay, they tend to do that. So there was a time, no, na laging sinasabi ng kaibigan ko sa anak niya, "Who's that?" "That's Ninong Joaquin. That's Ninong Joaquin." And then later on, ginagaya na ng anak niya yung Joaquin. Gumaganon-ganon na siya palagi even though 2 years old pa lang yung bata. So yes, language is imitated talaga. Kung ano yung ginagawa ng mga kasambahay mo or ng mga kasamahan mo dyan, ayan, ini-imitate yan ng mga tao. Now, reinforcement. What do we mean by reinforcement? Of course, pag when we say reinforcement, it means na araw-araw siya napapractice, nare-reinforce nga, or nagkakaroon din tayo na tinatawag na conditioning. So what we mean by conditioning is binibigyan natin ng awards yung tao para matuto ng lingwahe. So, etong behaviorist theory kasi, best applicable to sa mga bata. In my opinion best applicable to sa mga bata. Halimbawa, yung bata is pumipindot-pindot. Di ba may mga toys sila? May mga toys sila na pag pinindot nito, yung ba, pinindot niya yung cow, moo. Pag pinindot naman niya yung dog, arf, arf. Yun. Natutuwa yung bata kasi sa ganun. Tapos, pag natutuwa siya, yung magulang natutuwa din. And dahil natutuwa lahat, mas tumatatak sa utak ng bata na pag sinabing cow, moo. Tapos sasabihin siyang, very good. Very good. Di ba pag nanonood kayo ng Dora, nung bata kayo, napanood niyo na ba yung Dora? Dora or Barney. Di ba si Dora, lahat na lang ng bagay di niya nakikita. Halimbawa, can you help me where the door is at? Can you show me where the door is at? Tapos, bibigyan ka niya ng time na mag-isip. So, obviously, yung bata, ituturo niya kung nasaan. That's the door. Ngayon, si Dora naman magugulat. That's the door! Dora, this is an achievement sa bata. And because it's an achievement sa bata, natutuwa siya. Mas maalala na ngayon kung ano itsura ng pintuan. That's what we mean by conditioning. Okay, now let's proceed with nativist and universal grammar theory. So, class, I want to introduce to you Noam Chomsky. Our proponent for both of this is Noam Chomsky. So, si Noam Chomsky is perhaps one of the most influential persons to date. Hanggang ngayon, buhay pa siya. Si Noam Chomsky is isa siyang leading figure when it comes to linguistics, but not necessarily in linguistics lang. Mahilig din to magsalita about politics and social things. So, yes, matalino tong si Noam Chomsky talaga. Now, meron siyang dalawang prinopose. It's the nativist and the universal grammar. So, according to nativists, humans are born with an innate ability for language, which is guided by universal grammar. Ano naman yung universal grammar? There is a set of grammatical principles shared by all languages, part of the human mind's structure. If we're going to discuss these two, relative tong dalawang to. Connected sila palagi. Magandang i-discuss yung universal grammar in partnership with nativist. Hindi siya magandang i-discuss separately. Kasi connected sila. Ang tao daw ay pag pinanganak, or kahit ano, in general, ang mga tao daw ay may innate. Pag sinabi nating innate, inborn or hardwired, nakadikit na to sa utak ng tao, na meron daw tayong ability para mag-aral ng lingwahe or maka-acquire ng language. Paano natin ito nakukuha? Sa paanong paraan? By universal grammar. So what is universal grammar? There is a set of grammatical principles shared by all languages, part of the human mind's structure. So ito lang naman, universal grammar is a set of grammatical principles shared by all languages. So yan ang tatandaan mo dito, nativist and universal grammar theory. Now, I want to introduce naman second language acquisition, SLA, by Stephen Krashen. So ano ba yung difference ng acquisition and ng learning? So may difference yan. Ang main highlight ng theory ni Stephen Krashen is second language. Ibig sabihin, pangalawang lingwahe na. Ano naman yung acquisition? Pag sinabi nating acquisition, it means natututunan mo yung lingwahe subconsciously. So, ano ibig sabihin ng subconsciously? Ibig sabihin, wala kang malay, natututunan mo yung lingwahe. Wala kang malay, natututunan mo yung lingwahe. Anong ibig sabihin nun? Wala kang malay. Question, paano ka natuto mag-English? Siguro, some of you learned English in a way na nag-trace kayo, nagtitrace-trace kayo para matuto kayo ng letters, paano magsulat. Tapos, pinagalitan kayo ng teachers nyo, write your name back to back, hindi na ako magkukulit. Ako, si Joaquin Timones, hindi na ako magkukulit. Tapos, isusulat mo yan sa paper back to back. Mukha siyang punishment, oo. But that's actually training your hand na mag-muscle memory para magsulat. So, wala kang malay-malay, pero natututo ka. Okay? And that also trains your mind na maging familiar sa letters. So, that is acquisition. Okay? Now, yung iba naman sa inyo, natuto ng lingwahe by watching movies. That's also acquisition. Now, ano naman yung language learning? Ang language learning, this is the rigorous process of understanding and applying a language. Rigorous process. O once again, when we say language learning, it is the rigorous process. So when we say rigorous, madugo, maproseso, mahirap na proseso ng pag-aaral ng lengguwahe. Pag sinabi naman nating language acquisition, this is the subconscious acquiring of language. Subconscious. So, kung tatanungin, alin madali sa dalawa? Language learning or language acquisition? Obviously, mas madali yung language acquisition. Pero kasi, ang language acquisition, applicable siya, mas madali siyang ma-acquire pag bata ka pa. Kaya nga, the best way to learn a language or the best way to expose a human to different languages is kung bata pa siya. May isang bata, I forgot his name, basta kilala siya worldwide, na 7 languages yung alam niya. So, polyglot na siya. Kasi nung bata pa lang siya, na-expose na siya. Kaya nga, ang mga bata, pag binigyan mo yan ng isang bagay, compared sa mga matatanda, mas nagiging fluent sila doon or mas nagiging competent sila doon. Hindi nyo ba napapansin yung mga bata pag binigyan mo ng tablet, mas marunong na silang kumalikot ng tablet or ng phone kaysa sa mga matatanda. That's because they acquired it. Hindi naman sila tinuruan paano gumamit ng settings, kung paano taasan yung brightness ng phone. Eh yung mga matatanda, hindi sila marunong gumamit nun because they still have to learn how to use a phone. Whereas yung mga bata, iwanan mo lang sila ng cellphone, magugulat ka na lang, marunong na mag-Facebook, marunong na mag-Twitter, marunong na mag-fix ng troubleshooting problems yan pag nasira yung phone nila. Because they acquired it in that way. Subconsciously nila natutunan yun. So, kung meron tayong second language, of course, meron din tayong first language. So, para hindi tayo mahirapan sa definition, imbis na sabihin natin first or second, let's use the term L1 and L2. So, what do we mean by L1 and L2? So, when we say L1, this is the first language, L2 is the second language. Sa L1, ito yung una mong lingwaheng natutunan. Sa L2, ito yung pangalawa, and then pag L3 and so on and so forth, ito yung mga languages na natututunan mo in the future. Now, I want to introduce another term, mother tongue. So, empty na lang para hindi mo mahirapan mag-type. So, mother tongue. So, we have mother tongue, L1, and L2. Ano yung difference ng tatlong yan? Ang mother tongue, ito yung lingwahe, ito yung native language sa lugar mo. Once again, mother tongue, this is the native language sa lugar mo, sa locality. So for example, sa Pilipinas, what is the mother tongue of the Philippines? It's Filipino in English. Okay? Because constitutionally speaking, ang official language natin is Filipino in English. So litan pa natin. What is the mother tongue of Rizal? Punta muna tayo ng Rizal. Rizal province ah. Ang mother tongue ng Rizal is Tagalog. Tagalog. Kasi yun yung dominant language doon. Ang dominant language sa Rizal is Tagalog. So, ang mother tongue nila is Tagalog. Sa Cebu, ano yung mother tongue ng Cebu? Ang dominant na language doon is Cebuano. So, the mother tongue in Cebu is Cebuano. Question, pag pinanganak ka sa Rizal or sa Cebu, ma-acquire mo, ang first language mo ba is yung mother tongue? Ang first language mo ba is mother tongue? Not necessarily. What if Amerikano yung magulang mo, so marunong sila mag-English. Pero pinanganak ka sa Cebu. At dahil pinanganak ka sa Cebu, ang mother tongue doon is Cebuano, does that automatically mean na ang L1 mo is going to be Cebuano? Siyempre hindi. Di ba? Ang L1 mo nga, this is your first language, so subjective to. Mother tongue is objectively going to be the language of your area. Whereas ang L1 naman, subjective to. Just because you're born in an environment na iba yung mother tongue does not necessarily mean na yun na rin yung magiging L1 mo. So it's possible na kung pinanganak ka sa Cebu pero pinalaki ka ng magulang mo to speak English, ang L1 mo is English. So yung mother tongue should be Cebuano but yung L1 mo is English. So ano naman yung L2 mo? Malay mo yung L2 mo, dun mo lang matutunan yung Cebuano. Okay? So that's the second language. Now, the issue is, balik nga ulit tayo sa sinasabi ko kanina, the best way para matuto ng lingwahe or the best time para matuto ng lingwahe is kung bata ka pa. Kasi na-acquire mo yung language. Pero habang tumatagal, humihirap. Halimbawa, hindi ka naman natuto mag-Japanese or ng Korean nung bata ka, tama? Hindi ka marunong mag-Japanese or Korean nung bata ka. Kailan ka lang ba na-expose sa anime or sa K-drama? Siguro assume natin mga 12 years old ka na expose sa anime or K-drama. And dahil late ka na na-expose, hindi mo na ma-acquire yung Korean or yung Japanese. Kung gusto mo mag-aral ng Korean or ng Japanese, kailangan mo talaga siyang aralin. Kailangan mo siyang i-learn. But that does not mean na hindi mo na pwedeng i-acquire. Because according kay Stephen Krashen's second language acquisition, possible pa rin naman maka-acquire ng lingwahe kahit anong age. May mga techniques tayo para dyan. But intindihin na muna natin yung key concepts. Okay? So, sa monitor hypothesis daw ni Stephen Krashen, learners use learned grammar rules to monitor or correct their output, but over-reliance can slow fluency. So, let's assume na yung bata hindi siya marunong mag-English. Siya marunong mag-English. Tinuruan mo siya na ang have ginagamit siya para sa I. Ang have ginagamit para sa I. So ngayon, sabi ng bata, I has a book. I has a book. Pero dahil tinuruan mo siya ng ang have ginagamit sa I, i-correct niya sarili niya automatically. Imo-monitor niya sarili niya automatically na it should be, I have a book. This is based kung ano yung natutunan niyang rules, which is tinuro mo. Ang problema dito kasi, pag masyadong nagre-rely ang bata or ang tao sa ganun, babagal yung fluency niya. Ano ba yung fluency? When we say fluency, this is the ability of a person to speak a language very comfortably with less errors. Less errors. This means na kaya mo magsalita ng lengguwahe na comfortable ka naman pero hindi sobrang ungrammatical. So kung masyado mong monitor yung grammar mo sa language acquisition, obviously, babagal yung process mo para maging fluent. But for me, that's also nice. Kung babagal man yung process mo para maging fluent, ano naman yung magiging result nun? It's going to make your fluency accurate in the future. Mabagal man yung proseso, pero at least accurate. So once again, monitor hypothesis. This is when learners monitor themselves, correcting themselves. Natural order hypothesis. Grammatical structures are acquired in a predictable order, regardless of teaching sequence. So, predictable order. Let's assume na ang L1 mo is English. L1 mo is English and let's say 20 years old ka na, English lang yung language na alam mo. Ano ba yung sentence pattern ng English? 'Di ba? Sentence pattern ng English is subject, verb, and object. 'Di ba? Yan yung sentence pattern ng English, subject, verb, object. So that is the predictable order. So therefore, kung mag-aaral man ng second language ang English person, madali na sa kanyang intindihin yung French and Spanish. Bakit? Sa French and Spanish kasi, katulad lang din siya ng English na ang kanyang sentence pattern is SVO. Pero kung mag-aaral ang English person ng Japanese, which is yung kanilang sentence pattern is sentence, object, verb, nakakalito yun para sa kanila. Hindi siya predictable order. Therefore, acquiring that language is more difficult compared to French and Spanish. Diba? Grammatical structures are acquired in a predictable order regardless of teaching sequence. Okay? So, ano naman tong acquisition learning hypothesis? So, ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, na pag sinabi nating acquisition, it is subconscious natural learning. It is different from language learning, which is conscious or rigorous study of rules. Now, paano natin i-apply ito? Let's say, ang L1 mo is Filipino. L1 mo is Filipino. Tapos 20 years old ka na, hindi ka pa rin marunong mag-English. So, di ba dapat language learning na? Aralin mo na talaga yung rules niya isa-isa. But it's still possible na maka-acquire ka. It's still possible na ma-acquire mo yung English in a way na magiging natural. Ano ba yung mga natural ways of learning? Makinig ka sa music, di ba? Sa tagal-tagal mo nang namubuhay sa Pilipinas, kahit sabihin mong hindi ka marunong mag-English, for sure may mga alam kang English words kasi mahilig kang makinig sa music. Di ba? For example, hey, I just met you, and this is crazy, but here's my number, so call me maybe. Nagkaroon ng time, I asked the student, ano yung English ng baka? Sabi niya, maybe. Sabi ko, saan mo natutunan yun? Saan mo nalaman? Sabi niya, kasi sa yung call me maybe, tawagan mo ako baka. O di ba? So that's also acquisition. Kaya kung magtuturo ka ng language sa student na hindi maalam sa lingwaheng to, kailangan ikaw yung mag-adjust. Kailangan ituro mo siya in a comprehensible way. Okay? Na hindi siya mahihirapan ng sobra-sobra. Oo, there are times na kailangan mag-language learning. Halimbawa, kailangan niya mag-trace para matuto siya. 'Di ba? Kung mag-aaral ka ng Japanese, yung writing system nila, kailangan mo talagang i-drawing yun mano-mano. Unfortunately, that's the way. Pero kung ituturo mo yung Japanese sa kanila, edi panoorin mo siya ng mga movies. Panoorin mo siya ng mga movies para makita mo kung paano ina-apply yung lengguwahe sa culture nila. Panoorin mo siya ng anime, ganyan. Pakinggan mo siya ng J-pop. Yun, that's learning as well. Okay. So active filter hypothesis. Ano naman yung active? So, affective. Sorry lutang na. Affective filter hypothesis. So, ang tong word na affective, may kinalaman lagi to sa emotions. Common sense lang naman to. Pag anxious si learner, pag masyado siyang anxious, mahirap mag-aral ng lengguwahe. Whereas kung relax lang siya, kalmado lang siya, mas madali mag-aral ng lengguwahe. Another theory I would like to show you is the circles of English, yung kay Crassus model. So, a model describing global use of English. So, itong mga nasa inner circle daw, ang language nila is native English. Ibig sabihin, fluent na fluent sila sa English and English lang talaga yung ginagamit nila. Ang outer circle naman is English is a second language. So, kasama dyan ng Philippines. Okay? Totoo naman, even though constitutionally speaking, official language ang English, it is just a second language dahil mas major pa rin ang Filipino compared sa English. Expanding circle naman. In the expanding circle, English is treated as a foreign language. Sa Japan kasi, ang main language nila is Japanese. Okay? Tinuturo din naman yung English, pero foreign na yung English sa kanila. What do we mean by foreign? When we say foreign, in this context, hindi siya required aralin. Hindi required aralin. Okay? So, ang proponent natin dito is si Braj Kachru. So, ang kagandahan dito, ang other term sa Circle of English is Crassus model. Alright, so let's apply the theory. Situation: Maria, a 10-year-old student from Spain, has recently moved to the United States. In her first weeks at school, she mostly listens to her classmates and teachers but rarely speaks. Kasi nga, 10 years siya galing sa Spain, lumipat siya sa US, which is English ang kanilang dominant language. Sa unang mga weeks niya, hindi siya makapagsalita. Nagsasalita siya pero rarely. Mostly nakikinig lang siya. Habang tumatagal, over time, she begins to form short sentences and eventually participates in class discussions confidently. Her teacher notices that she sometimes self-corrects herself. Self-correct. So, parang ganito lang yan, no? I is happy. I is happy to meet you. I am happy to meet you. Parang gumaganon-ganon daw siya. Mapapansin daw to in her writing. In her writing. So, nakita niya sa writing, inekis niya yung is, ginawa niyang M. After daw ituro sa kanya. So, we can assume na throughout her weeks of staying in the United States, ganun yung nagiging process niya. Self-correct after ituro sa kanya. Question: based on Krashen's hypothesis, which of the following statements best explains Maria's language development? Is it A, B, C, or D? So I'll give you some time to think. Just pause the video. The correct answer is letter A. Her initial silent period reflects the monitor hypothesis. Ano ba yung monitor hypothesis? 'Di ba sa monitor hypothesis, mino-monitor ni learner yung sarili niya kung tama ba to or mali based sa rules na tinuro sa kanya. No? Learners use learned grammar rules to monitor or correct their output, but over reliance can over ayan. So tinuturo nila sarili nila, kino-correct nila yung sarili nila based sa kung ano yung tinuro. Sa situation na nga to, napansin nga ni teacher na kino-correct ni Maria yung sarili niya after siyang turuan sa klase. So, the superior answer is going to be letter A. Okay, 19. Who is commonly referred to as the father of modern linguistics? Okay, the correct answer here is going to be letter A. Si Ferdinand de Saussure. So si Ferdinand de Saussure siya yung father of modern linguistics. However, it's debatable. Pag wala si Ferdinand de Saussure sa option, pag wala siya, the superior answer is always going to be Noam Chomsky. Once again, pag wala si Ferdinand de Saussure, the superior answer is Noam Chomsky. So let's discuss about that. Sino si Ferdinand de Saussure? Kilala si Ferdinand sa kanyang work na Semiotics, so the study of signs. It is the foundational it is foundational in modern linguistics kasi dahil dito naintindihan natin yung psychological aspects of a language. So, according to him, ang linguistic sign ay may dalawang inseparable components. It is the signifier and the signified. When we say signifier, this is the form. So what do we mean by form? Ang form can either be through sound or a word. So, di ba yung word, nakasulat siya through letters, sound naman, naririnig mo siya sa tenga mo. Yan yung signifier. So, ano may yung signifiers natin? Let's have a look. So, we have the phoneme D, O, and G. Ang phoneme na D, O, G, D, O, G, D, O, G. On their own separate phonemes, the sound D, O, and G, walang meaning yan on their own. But dahil kinonect mo sila together, magkakaroon ka ng mental image ng aso. Tama ba? Tama ba? Yan yung signified. The concept or meaning associated with the signifier. Okay, another example. Nakita mo itong ang word natin, okay? Ang word natin is tree. T-R-E-E. T-R-E-E. Or nakita mo tong image na to. This is the icon. Okay? This is the icon. Or narinig mo yung sound ng puno. Narinig mo yung sound ng puso. Alam ba, ng puno. Let's say, naglalakad-lakad ka, tapos may hangin na dumaan, tapos parang nakarinig ka ng mga dahon. Immediately, unang pumapasok sa utak mo is a real-life tree. So, ano yung signifier in that case? Yung tunog ng dahon, narinig mo. Tapos pumasok sa isip mo, that's a tree. Or halimbawa, ganito. Boom! Boom! Nakarinig ka ng boom! That is the signifier. Ano yung nagiging signified sa utak mo ngayon? It's an explosion or a bomb. Diba? So that is the mental concept. Now, ano yung naging form na sinabi ko? Boom! What is the form? Yung sound, di ba? Yung sinabi ko sa iyo yung sound ng boom, immediately nagkaroon ka ng signified idea na this is related to an explosion or a bomb. Okay? Ang form na ginamit ko is sound. Pero what if yung form na ginamit ko is sinulat ko? Ang nakalagay is B-O-O-M. Well, baka yung pumasok na signified pa rin sa'yo is bomba or yung literal na word na boom. Yung onomatopoeia na word na boom. Okay? So, 20. Which of the following correctly classifies the relationship between a sign and what it represents? So, I'll give you some time to think. Okay. The correct answer here is letter D. Nakakalito to. Let me explain. So, meron tayong tinatawag na icon, index, and symbol. Pag sinabi nating icon, based on resemblance. Tingnan niyo yung icon sa picture na to. Sorry. Tingnan niyo yung icon sa picture na to. Anong unang pumapasok sa isip mo pag nakita mo yung icon? Ba yan, ang gulo. Sorry. Di ba bike? May naisip ka pa bang iba? May naisip ka pa bang iba dito? Di ba ang unang papasok lang sa isip mo is bike or bisikleta? Yun na yun. Wala kang na maisip na iba. Because the icon is based on resemblance. Whereas ang index naman, based on causal or physical connection. Pag nakita ka ng bungo na ganito, anong pumapasok sa isip mo? Deadly. Di ba ang bungo or ang skull, this is death. This is associated with death or something dangerous. Warning, parang ganyan. Yan ang index. Causal or physical connection. Pag nakita ka ng smoke, anong unang papasok sa isip mo? Baka may apoy, baka may fire, di ba? Pag nakarinig ka ng explosion, anong unang papasok sa isip mo? Baka may bomba. Pag may nakarinig ka ng kalabog, parang let's say, nahulog, ganun. 'Di ba? It's either may isip mo baka may sumabog or baka may nahulog. You would know that. Either way, that's the index. Ano naman ang symbol? Ang symbol, arbitrary yan or conventional. So when we say arbitrary, pag tinignan mo siya, wala ka talagang idea kung ano ibig sabihin yan. Kailangan ipaliwanag sa'yo. Kasi nga, it's arbitrary. May meaning siya na napagkasunduan ng mga tao. So, kung hindi mo pa alam, hindi mo alam. For example, a flag. Let's say, yung Philippine flag. Okay? The Philippine flag, to other people, let's say, mga ignorant na hindi nila alam yung itsura ng Philippines, hindi rin nila alam ano yung itsura ng Philippine flag, pag pinakita mo sa kanila yung flag na yun, they wouldn't understand that. Kailangan pang ipaliwanag. So, let's have a look. A photograph is a symbol. Talaga ba? A photograph is a symbol? Pag ba pinakitaan kita ng picture ko, meron ba siyang hidden meaning na kailangan pang ipaliwanag sa'yo? Wala. Because a photograph is an icon. It directly resembles me. Unless yung photograph na ipapakita mo is a symbol. Halimbawa, nagpakita ka ng picture ng flag. O, kailangan nun ng symbol. That is a symbol. A smoke is a sign of fire as smoke is a sign as sorry. Smoke as a sign of fire is an icon because it visually resembles fire. Smoke, does it visually resembles fire? Magkaiba yun. Eh di sana kung if you want to resemble fire, dapat literal na fire na lang. A national flag is an index. Di ba nga, pag sinabi nga nating index, causal. Causal or physical connection. So, ang Philippine flag ba, physically, it shows connection to our country? Di ba hindi? Ano ba yung itsura ng Philippine Archipelago? Ibang-iba siya sa itsura ng Philippine flag, di ba? So, magkaiba yun. Etong D, a portrait is an icon. Kasi nga, ito yung sinasabi ko. Kung ano yung nasa litrato, it directly resembles it. So, that's why a portrait is an icon. Okay? By the way, ang proponent natin sa semiotic theory ng science ay si Charles Sanders Peirce. So magkaiba yung semiotic theory ni Peirce sa semiotics ni Ferdinand de Saussure. Although his theory is based on semiotics, mas pinalawak niya lang yung science ni Ferdinand de Saussure. Alright, so we're gonna proceed with our next drills later on.